What up, Doe? We're back. Following a Iowa victory, which seemed like I don't know. It was weird that they won a game. It felt like it was a while. And I think actually with the bye week, it was a while. But hey, a win is a win, or whatever garbage saying that is. No, but seriously, Iowa beats Northwestern 17-13 in a pretty ugly game. And we'll get to that in a bit, just my thoughts on that. Also, I want to take a look ahead at Minnesota this weekend in a series Iowa has completely dominated in recent years. In fact, since I went to school at Iowa, I think they've never lost to Minnesota at home, and they've lost once, I believe, to them. Yeah, 14. Which is crazy to think of. But we'll get to that. And then basketball's coming up at 9 p.m. Central against Longwood. I mean, the viewership outside of the state of Iowa for that game has to be just non-existent at 10 Eastern. But it is what it is. So we'll get to that. Basketball coming off of an exhibition win over Slippery Rock that was pretty rudimentary. Nobody got hurt. I think that was the most important thing. But first, let's head back to Saturday. Hawkeyes win at Northwestern, a game they had to have for many reasons, including but not limited to, I think, all of our sanity and any sense of accomplishment this season, and just building off of anything and getting back on the right track and trying to steer the ship. I mean, Minnesota lost earlier in the day, which reopened the door a bit for Iowa in the West. If we're going to get to that talk, they still need Wisconsin to lose, which isn't going to happen. I don't think. It would be stunning if Wisconsin lost again. They have a pretty easy schedule down the stretch. Toughest game is probably Minnesota at the end for them. But again, this Iowa team, and you saw it on Saturday, they're not going to win anything of note. Outside of maybe a brass pig. I mean, they're not going to win the Big Ten. That's pretty clear. And look, the Big Ten, it's Ohio State again. Michigan State lost at Purdue. And it looked a lot like the Iowa game, except Michigan State was scoring a bit and was more competitive for longer. But Purdue did it again. Purdue plays Ohio State this weekend, so they'll probably lose that. But you never know, I guess, at this point. But it just looks like Ohio State is the class of the conference again. And it is what it is. I mean, that's how it is, has been, is, and probably always will be. But going back to Iowa, they're not gonna win the Big Ten. I mean, if they get to Indianapolis somehow, they would be a multiple touchdown underdog to Ohio State. Likely Ohio State. They still have to beat Michigan State and Michigan in the East. But so I don't think it's real constructive to start going into scenarios where, I don't know, if Wisconsin can lose here and then Purdue's going to lose this weekend, and then if Iowa beats Minnesota, no, and Wisconsin just looks head and shoulders above everyone else now. I don't know what happened. It's almost like they made adjustments in the middle of the season and it all worked, and they had a really bad offense, and it's been okay, not great, but it's been okay. It's been good enough. All of a sudden they were running back again. It was fun when they didn't have a running back for the first time in forever. Now they have a running back again. But back to Iowa. I don't want to get sidetracked. Back to Iowa. It was a weird game. Early on it looked like with Petrus in there that this is just going to be exactly what we thought. 6-3. I didn't know if Iowa could even score 6. And I would even say, I'll go as far as saying if Petrus plays, like if he's not hurt, or if he can just gut it out, they probably lose the game. I mean, let's be honest. Because offensively, Petrus goes out, Padilla comes in, the offense looked immediately better just because Padilla could hit slants. It's a big deal. He could hit a slant pattern, and Padilla and Petrus just has not been able to do that. Padilla goes 18 for 28 for 162. I mean, it just opened up everything. Is he the be-all, end-all? Everyone's acting like he's Patrick Mahomes because he had a Georgia offer. I don't know. I think this week will tell you, a week you're playing a functional opponent. You're at home, but like it's still a rivalry game. Minnesota's always tough with Iowa. This will tell you more. I think this will really tell you if they and here's the rub too. If Padilla comes out and lights it up, like if he's just phenomenal against Minnesota, and this offense is never going to be good or great, but if they can run the ball again and it opens up running lanes for Tyler Goodson and Padilla is hitting the slam patterns and he's hitting some of those windows he was hitting. And I will say this, I was really impressed with a couple of his throws down the field. He hit Keegan Johnson on one, I think, for a 10-yard pass. It was really impressive. And just throws we have not seen Petrus make at all. I mean, he was making some of those Nate Stanley throws. And it was a breath of fresh air. It was a nice wrinkle just to this offense. And so here's the thing, though. If he comes out Saturday and the offense just looks better and they handily beat Minnesota and the offense is kind of humming, where the hell was this 2 weeks ago? Where was this? Why was Petrus the unquestioned starter all year? That needs to be asked if this is for real. Now, if Padilla comes out and it's been a week of a team scouting and preparing and he looks in over his head, then okay. But like he looked good enough where it should have, at least been a quarterback competition. There was no competition. By the time we're out of spring camp, Petrus was the unquestioned starter. So that is obviously the most fascinating aspect of this contest with Minnesota going forward and the takeaway from the Northwestern game. Otherwise, the second half, the offense did nothing. They kind of went into a shell, but I still think they were trying and just there wasn't a lot going on. The defense played pretty well. The turnovers are fine. I can't complain about turnovers, but Northwestern's just so bad. That's the thing. I want to give a lot of credit, but a lot of missed tackles. That touchdown at the end really hurt. Really hurt, I thought. That it became sort of a game just sucked some confidence away from it. When it was 7-6 or when it was 17-6, if it could have just ended like that, Northwestern's never in it. And then, Northwestern gets the ball back with a chance at the end, and Iowa snuffed it out because Northwestern was bad. But it was a little disappointing. It took some air out of it, out of an otherwise just whatever game. It was a necessary win to get them back on track. Again, are they going to be able to do anything the rest of the season outside of somehow getting Indianapolis and beating Ohio State that would really make up for, I don't know, 10-2, I guess, 10-2, not in Indianapolis in the Outback Bowl. It's more of the same. So I don't want to be negative, though. They won the game. It was weird. It was at times boring. I think that's just how it was going to be. Iowa, there's some numbers here. Iowa goes 2 for 14 on third down, which is just not good. Northwestern came in actually a pretty bad third down team, and Iowa converts twice in 14 chances. That has to be better. Tyler Goodson got going, 21 for 141 in a score, which we were all waiting for. I think that's the Padilla effect. I think if Petrus is out there, he's not as much of a factor, and that's a great point. Yeah, it's weird. I don't understand it. The guy came out for warmups last week and couldn't throw the ball, and he was medically cleared. And I was just reading before I came on about how he's medically cleared, but Ferentz said he cannot throw the ball. So I don't know what he's medically cleared, meaning he's alive. Is that I don't know. I don't know what that is. And he's not even on the depth chart, as you mentioned. He's not second string. He's not he's just. It feels like to me. It feels like he's done for the season, just injury wise. That's what it feels like that, and it feels like for some reason, and maybe it's the same reason why. And again, if Padilla is most of what we saw on Saturday, the questions just need to be rained down on the Ferences and Ken O'Keefe. What happened there? So I don't understand that. That's a good point. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I like when football coaches act like, this is the nuclear codes, and you got Lincoln Riley getting cutting off media because somebody said a quarterback starting, and is he done for the year? Is he coming back next week? I will say this: I was still coming out of that game. I was still expecting Petras to start this week, if it was just whatever. And yeah, Keegan Johnson, and that was my next point. Goodson, Johnson, and Bruce were the top 3 in receptions for Iowa. Johnson went 5 for 68, Bruce 3 for 30, and T. Goodson 3 for 25. I mean, definite bright spots. And that's what, I know I've been saying, and I'm sure many people have been saying it. This is nothing like cutting edge, but get those guys more involved. You can see that they're just more talented than what Iowa has at receiver. They add a new wrinkle. And then Tyler Goodson, get him going in the passing game. And Padilla did. Padilla came out, was hitting those slant patterns and really fitting some balls in a shoebox out there. And I will give credit to Brian Ferentz for having those guys in the game, having more plays drawn up their way. Again, where was this at Wisconsin? Like, how do you go to Wisconsin and Padilla's not even in the game plan if he can run and throw like this? So that's what's frustrating. But yeah, I don't wish anyone injury. I think everyone can just agree that it shouldn't have taken Petras to get hurt for this to happen. And that's the rub. It comes off as, in a vacuum, it starts to sound like we're all happy he got hurt, and nobody wants to see him get hurt. I'm not happy he's hurt. I wish he could play. But I also wish he was healthy enough to play, and the coaches would realize he doesn't give them the best chance to win the game right now. And again, how is Padilla this far away throughout fall camp, throughout the season so far? That's something that maybe we'll see on Saturday why. Maybe we'll see that he's just not that much better and can't do much. But if nothing else, he adds another wrinkle. If nothing else, bring him in on some packages. Line him up at wide receiver, throw him the ball. He can throw back. He can he can run. Just more, I just think it's just a misuse of talent there. Yeah, everyone wants Deuce Hogan. He's the greatest quarterback to never play down in Iowa, I think. I did like and cringe when he called out Ohio State when he committed to Iowa. I love the moxie and the name. It's the greatest name ever, Deuce Hogan. If he ever plays, it'll be must watch because everyone and their mother in Iowa Hawkeye Nation is just begging for them to put him in. But he must not. If he's this far behind the other two, then I guess he's just not even close. I don't know. Like, it just seems like the way Petras was playing this season, there should have been much more opportunity. And maybe that's just stubbornness. Maybe that's, the KOK and Kirk think they can mold Petras into something. I don't get it. I at least Padilla is giving them the better chance to win right now. Whether or not Petras, we've seen Petras perfectly healthy, and Padilla looked better than that. So this weekend will be so interesting, though. I will say this: it went from just them sort of playing out the string of this disappointing season all of a sudden to, okay, what do we have here? It's very intriguing. Yeah, and that's the best. That's what I'm wondering. How do you come to Wisconsin? And we all said this. They're running fullback dives twice in a row. It made no sense. Gavin Williams, 10 carries, 41 yards. I thought that was, he ran the ball pretty well. I thought that was a bright spot just going forward. He's just looked better to me than, and God love Ivory Kelly Martin. He's stuck around and he's loyal trooper. Gavin just looks like he's been running the ball better. And maybe that's the fumbles, maybe whatever, but that's just how it's looked. And so it was nice to see that. And this was sort of the game. This is what I fear though too now. And this is the sick Iowa fan in me. Now I'm fearing Padilla is like Pat Mahomes. The big thing now is he had a Georgia offer. He's Pat Mahomes, and now Goodson's going to be running for 200 yards a game, and they've already kind of blown their season. That's what is scaring me too. Not that I'm going to complain if they win out, but it's a catch-22 again. The officials. I mean, first of all, forget about the officials for a second. The presentation on TV, it was the first game I watched on TV all year. I'd been to every single game, and I hope that the other games were bad. They had to have been better than that. That was an abomination. I mean, an absolute joke. First of all, Matt Millen should be nowhere near a football field. But the presentation was terrible. For half the game, or it felt like for half a quarter, the sound was off, or the sound was going in and out. And Ryan Field always has bad camera angles and always it looks like I'm watching, Ankeny versus Northwest High and Waukee. Like it always is. It's Ryan Field always looks so bad with the cameras and the balls hitting the camera behind the field goal post. The officiating was a complete joke. I mean, there were numerous plays. In Northwestern, I think it was when they threw a pick in the end zone to end the drive, but they called a pass interference on, I forget who it was. It might have been Hankins. That was just on a fourth down. That was insanely awful. I mean, just when it should never have been made. Just bad calls. There were bad calls on both sides. Iowa forced a fumble at one point that was called an incomplete pass, and everyone on the bad broadcast was even saying that it was a fumble, and they were correct. Terrible. I mean, Big Ten Network, it's like, it's 2007, right? So it's been around for 14 years. Is my math correct? And it looks like they do it out of a truck. It's very, they really need to join up. We all hate ESPN, I think, but SEC Network just looks better because it just looks like an ESPN broadcast. And it doesn't even look like a Fox broadcast, the Big Ten Network. It always looks like when they do that Student U on the Big Ten, where they have some students broadcasting the game that's not going to be on TV. It looks just like that. Or Big Ten Plus I'll watch sometimes. I'll be watching like Iowa softball, and it's better broadcast than the football. I mean, it's awful. It's an awful product. And they just need to do better. I mean, this is the Big Ten. This isn't the Sun Belt. And I'm watching games, the sound's going out, the cameras the angles are terrible. You can't get a replay. The announcers, I got Matt Millen teaching me about football after he drove my pro football team to the ground for a decade. I digress. I guess that's about all I took from the Northwestern game. Look, they had to win for every reason. They did. Season's still kind of going along. And just we'll dovetail right into Minnesota then right now. It feels like this is a bit of a lose-lose for the Ferences and KOK going forward, or whoever's involved in the quarterback decision. Because, if they lose to Minnesota, they shouldn't lose to Minnesota. I mean, the offense still didn't look great in the second half. It rebounded in the first half. The second half was pretty uninspiring. It felt like, I guess, they were going into a shell. But if they come out and they don't look good and they lose, obviously it's a bad look for the Ferences. If they come out and Alex Padilla's lighting up the world, that's another bad look. Because where was this? I have to question your evaluation of talent. If Spencer Petras is coming out of the tunnel taking snaps with the first teamers in the Wisconsin game, or even earlier in the season. I mean, did Alex Padilla, between the Kent State and Colorado State games, all of a sudden just break out, and this has been untapped? I mean, he probably looked like this in the spring and in the summer and in the fall. So it's sort of a lose-lose in that respect. But if Padilla comes out and plays well like he did, Iowa should be able to move the ball pretty effectively. I think it takes some pressure off. It takes some pressure off that offensive line that he can move a little bit. He's not getting a lot of time back there, but it's just, I will say it is so tough to evaluate when you're playing this Northwestern team. I mean, they are bad. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll go back to the BTN thing. They used to have that ESPN Plus thing, not this ESPN Plus. It was like an ESPN Big Ten ticket that you'd have to watch and you couldn't see. I mean, so no, I mean, in this day and age, BTN's a godsend. And at the time, it was the greatest thing ever. And I love watching their movies and the documentaries and stuff. But now I'm looking at the SEC network that's putting together professional product and, entertaining shows sometimes. And as much as we all hate the SEC, and it just looks so much more professional and better. I mean, it's just a better product. Big Ten Network just have to do better. But anyways, the Minnesota, it's I don't disagree. Thank you. Maybe. But yeah, hopefully we're still on the same wavelength as I get through the Minnesota preview here. But no, it's a lose-lose for the Ferences. I just think it's where was this if they play really well, and why now that they've already lost to Wisconsin, all these changes are happening, and I'm seeing Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce more. I hope I see them more. I hope I see them more for the next 3+ seasons, because you can see there's a lot of talent there. Iowa, this is interesting. Iowa opened as I believe it was a 6-point favorite. It's at 5.5. Over under, hilariously under 40 again, 37. But they're a 5.5-point favorite. Vegas thinks they're going to blow them out. Vegas thinks Iowa's going to blow out Minnesota. I can't predict them blowing out anyone. But this is a typical, like, if you're a bettor and you're looking around, you're going, Iowa's a 6-point favorite against Minnesota. This isn't, Kansas. Minnesota? Oh, Minnesota can cover that easily. It's exactly what Vegas wants. You go the other way. I think Vegas knows that Iowa's going to blow them out. I can't say that. I'm an Iowa fan. They're never going to blow out anyone. But that's how I would read that line. Word of advice, never bet on an Iowa game or Detroit Lions game. But especially, it's just never an Iowa game. You never know, unless it's the only Iowa games to bet on are when they're playing the Cupcakes, and maybe a total or something. But it's tough because the Iowa fan in me would bet on Minnesota, and then Iowa will win the game by 14 or vice versa. But the line I thought was fascinating. Vegas saying Iowa's going to blow them out. As for Minnesota, I watched a lot of Minnesota, Illinois, just because I couldn't believe they were losing to Illinois, which is sort of becoming less and less of a, I can't believe they're losing to Illinois. Like, Illinois is pretty intriguing now, which is weird. What a job Brett's done there. I mean, just that they've become functional now for a season at least. And this is year 0. They'll be in Kinnick next week. That'll be interesting. Especially if Iowa wins this game. If they lose, then oh god, I don't know if I can go. But anyways, Minnesota, I don't know what they are. I have not been able to figure them out. They lost to some MAC school. I forget. I just looked it up. I forget who it was. Lost to a MAC school, and then beat Purdue on the road. Purdue loses to mediocre teams and beats elite teams, I guess. Not that Iowa was elite, but Michigan State and Iowa were both in the top 3 when they lost to Purdue, but beat Purdue on the road, just started blasting teams. And then when it looked like they were kind of sailing along, I mean, I don't even know what that was on Saturday. The offense couldn't do anything. And Illinois played solid. They played well, opportunistic ball. But, I mean, Minnesota, I was watching that game, and they weren't even, like, it wasn't close until Minnesota finally put together a drive at the end thanks to a couple of penalties. But I never thought Minnesota was going to win that game or even tie it. It was really strange. And so I don't know what they are. I'm confused actually with Minnesota. Just looking at some of the numbers coming into this. Minnesota allows only 298 yards a game, which is better than Iowa. Iowa's allowing 304. They've allowed a shade over 100 on the ground, a little bit under 200 through the air. Not that I expect Iowa to like dominate them through the air. Offense has put up some okay numbers. Iowa's actually passed for more yards than Minnesota has this season. So I but Minnesota scored 25 a game. Iowa's 24. I don't know. I don't know what they are, because at times they can look really good. At times they look like every Minnesota team I've ever watched. Now, this is a crazy stat. Minnesota has not led in this series since 2016. I mean, they have not had a lead against Iowa in 5 years. So Iowa's completely owned them. They've completely dominated the series. In Kinnick, Minnesota hasn't won here since 99, I want to say. Kirk's first year. So Iowa's a 5.5-point favorite as of right now. I was expecting something along the line of like 17-14-ish. You could probably say that for every Iowa game going into it. But Vegas is telling me that Iowa's going to smack them around a little bit. I don't mean by like 30, but they should be able to cover a touchdown. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out Minnesota is. They're on like their fifth string running back. And they've looked like world beaters, and they've looked really bad. I mean, they were getting dominated. Illinois gashed them for 185 yards on the ground. And Minnesota could not stop them. I mean, it was late in the game when Illinois was just lining up, and it's like, we're going to run the ball down your throat. And they did. I mean, it was old school Brett Bielema, Wisconsin. We're going to line up and Monty Ball your ass to death. And Illinois was just pushing them around late in the game. I mean, getting it. There it is. Bowling Green. Thank you, Hayden. Minnesota lost to Bowling Green and didn't look good. Minnesota expected it'd always be a close game. I could never predict, especially this Iowa team. I could never predict them to blow out a team that's functional. I just could not. Especially at this point, there's still some questions. I mean, there's many questions for Iowa, but Riley Moss should be back. Terry Roberts is not. He won't be back. But it sounds like Moss will be back this week. Game timer. Mason Richmond left the game. Ferentz mentioned that he was week to week, which means he's probably out. And I think even on the depth chart, Jack Plum was getting a start. He was at left tackle, and then who was it? Let me see. Nick DeJong at right. So the offensive line is now shuffling. Kyler Schott was back though. I think it was his first full game since his injury. So I don't know. I don't know what this offensive line is. They're still shuffling and getting guys back and going through injuries, and really Linderbaum's been the only constant. Man, is he good? It's going to be a shame that when he leaves, because boy, they could use him. And without him, I don't know what. I don't think they block anyone without him this season. I don't think they complete a pass. There are plenty of questions. I mean, this is not. I talk about the Vegas thing, but Vegas isn't always right. Most of the time, it's right, but I don't know. I think Vegas is expecting Alex Padilla to get going, or maybe Minnesota's going to go in a tailspin. I don't know. It'll be a tough game. It'll be nip and tuck. It should be, typical Iowa, Minnesota, just slog that hopefully Iowa comes out on top of. And then you just kind of press forward and see. I don't know. And this goes back to kind of my apathy going forward this season, where it's like, okay, Northwestern game, whatever. The Padilla thing's very interesting. But if they win out, and I went through this 3 years ago in 18. In 18, they went, in 2019, 2 years ago. Felt like 3 years ago with COVID. 2019, Iowa goes 10-3, counting the bowl game. But didn't really win anything. I mean, this team could theoretically go 10-2, 11-2 with a bowl game win. Although, are they really going to beat someone in like a big bowl? I don't know. They got to get there first. But and is that something to hang your hat on? I'm not sure. I don't know how I would feel. I honestly I don't know if they go 11-2 and Wisconsin goes to Indianapolis and loses to Ohio State and that's it. Like, is that? I guess that's good. I guess that's good.
Yeah, that's a good point. And going back to the offensive line, that's a great point. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, both the tackles are really hurt. Everyone's struggling, and I guess it's 7-2. You're still playing. I mean, it would be irresponsible. You can't. There are still things to play for. I mean, you're not out of the conference race yet, so I guess you can't start experimenting too much. But maybe that goes back to why Padilla wasn't playing. Like, there's no imagination. There isn't a lot of. It's just like the steady ship, and this is Kirk's been doing this for 22-3 years, whatever it's been, and I guess it's just for better or for worse. And it's a double-edged sword though. At the beginning of the season when they're 6-0, everyone's elated because Kirk just stays the course and they'll punt when they're in plus territory and they'll pin their opponent deep and they'll just do what they do and it works. But when it doesn't work, do you ever evolve? Do you ever, all our tackles, so let's kick Colby out there. Let's try a different thing. Let's try a different quarterback. Let's play some of the younger guys. You don't see a lot of it. I mean, this going back, we'll go way back to when I was still a student. They go 4-8 in 2012. This will tell you everything. They go 4-8 in 2012. They lost their last 6. And by the end of that season, they were tailspin. The 3 weeks to go, they were done. That team was they were a mess. James Vandenberg started every game. He was still starting. I get the senior stuff, but like Jake, and they came into the next season and it was Rudock and a couple other guys. I forget who it was. Bethard and the other, and nobody had any playing time. They didn't have a second. And Ferentz has been better about that. But why is Vandenberg starting at all? And after you're 4-6, okay, no more bowl game, get him out of there. I get the loyalty thing, but there is a future too. And I agree. You can experiment a little bit. I think I was hoping maybe you could against Northwestern. It was at times like playing a MAC team. But push along to basketball. That's a good segue to the basketball team. So before I get to basketball, I'll be back next Tuesday, same time. Talk about basketball. I have a couple games under their belt. I'm actually heading up there Friday. I'm going to do the double dip. I'll be there Friday for their game against Kansas City and then stay in the night. I live in Des Moines. Stay in the night. I'll hit the football game, come back home. So I'll be at Carver for the first time in forever. I think it was the Purdue loss a year, almost 2. It'll be 2 years in March of 2019, right before COVID shut everything down. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, basketball starts in 27 minutes. So I'm going to hit basketball and then I'll get out of here so we can watch Iowa take on Longwood, which is a small school in Farming. I think it was Farming, Virginia, Farmtown, Virginia, something like that. Anyways, best player in the Iowa basketball team right now. I don't think it's close. I think it's Keegan Murray. I saw Andy Katz and included Jordan Bohannon as one of the top 20 Big Ten players right now, and Keegan Murray was not on there. I completely disagree. I just think Keegan Murray does so much more. And J-Bo's been, something about Bohannon, and it's sort of this love-hate with the fan base that has with him, because at the end of last season, I think everyone was just so disappointed that, and he talks crap, and he's very vocal at times when they're losing and stuff like that, that it felt like everyone was just kind of ready for him to leave. And then everyone left, like CJ Frederick left, Garza was gone, Wieskamp was gone, Nunji transferred, and then it was like, J-Bo, please come back. And so he deserves all the credit in the world. And you know what? Why the hell not? You got the extra year. You're going to be the name guy probably on this team. It's going to be his team, I think, just from seniority. So it's great that he's back. I love that he's back, and thank goodness he's back, because he will be very valuable, Jordan Bohannon. The best player on this team, though, is Keegan Murray right now. And honestly, at times last year, he looked like Iowa's second best player to the player of the year nationally. As a freshman, it was that first game, I forget who they played last year, eye-popping. Just like, wow, where did he come from? But that goes into the preview for this team. Keegan Murray, we know what he is. He's going to do a little bit of everything. He can do it all.
high motor, pretty good defensively, can score, can shoot a little bit. I mean, he can just do it all, but he's one of those guys that it's going to be so fun to watch him going forward. And seems a little quiet, which this team has been loud actually in recent years. And especially Bohannon and Frederick. So that'll be very interesting as we go into like next year when it's Murray's team, if he's still around. But it's Keegan Murray. He's their best player. And, basketball, Iowa Hoops had a tweet on Twitter, and it said the journey starts tonight. And it got me excited. It got me very excited for this team. Not that I think they're going to win the Big Ten. Not that I think they're going to go to the Final Four. I can't even predict them really to win a game in the NCAA tournament right now, but this is sort of it's just a new era, and there is an excitement there. I'm still very disappointed with how last season ended. I think everyone is. It was such a blown opportunity for this program to really make their mark nationally, and they had the player of the year. It was a shame they couldn't win the Big Ten. A lot of things. They did not check any of those boxes. But there is an excitement. And Hayden's right. It's Patrick McCaffrey too. Yeah. I hope he has a little bit more weight. The first year he was like a skeleton, just had that high school weight. And then last year had pretty good weight, kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit because that team had so much talent. He'll be fascinating. He could be a very big breakout candidate. This year. And apparently he looked pretty, I was watching the highlights. He looked pretty good in the exhibition. Tough to take anything from the Slippery Rock game to me. I guess most importantly, some of the young guys got in. Peyton Sanford had 12 points, a couple of threes, some nice minutes, but there is some excitement. I'm feeling some juice with this team. There is an unknown that's exciting. Now that being said, I'm fearing we may be entering this run of mediocrity. And when I say mediocrity, is this team always going to kind of hover around, 6th, 4th through 10th in the Big Ten forever and ever? Are they ever going to have those jump years? Or is this going to look a lot like Iowa football where, maybe the high is finishing 10-2 and not really winning much? So I do fear that because we're kind of back to where we were before the Garza explosion and all of that. But there is a lot of opportunity. I think there is a definite unknown about this team. I don't think there's that big of a floor for them, meaning I think they could miss the tournaments if at their worst, but I don't think this is like some very bad team. I do think there's enough talent on this team that they should be, at worst, like they're not in the bottom 4 in the Big Ten. I mean, at worst, a couple spots below. I think they're picked 9th. What would that be? 11th, maybe at worst, and out of the tournament. But I think the ceiling for this team is, 6th seed in the tournament. I mean, if all goes well, something that's very fascinating. I was reading after the exhibition game is they've been experimenting with this. They're going to press more, which I think is it'll be interesting. They said they just want to press almost like. I'm like, are we going to see, a Nolan Richardson 40 minutes of hell out there? And they've been pressing with Fran at times, but it sounded like they're going to just press the hell out of teams and hope to force turnovers. And that's just in terms of creating more defense. I think they should be better defensively. If nothing else, these guys have been in the program a little bit longer and Keegan's pretty good defensively and Joe T's done well defense. I mean, at some point, the defense has to come around a little bit. I don't know if they'll have all of the firepower that they did last year. They certainly won't have the Garza firepower. So it'll kind of even out that way. But yeah, it should be very fascinating. They should be 6-0. And then the schedule gets a bit hairy. But as of right now, I can't see them losing to. I mean, it's a pretty easy schedule, the first 6. Something to watch tonight. Longwood's largest player is 6'7". I was looking at the roster. So it'll be a lot of small ball. And that goes back to the point earlier. It all comes down to guard play at the end. I mean, you saw Iowa. If it came down to big man play, Iowa would have been cutting down the nets last year because they had the best big man in the country.
they had big men galore because they had God down at center. So it always comes down to guard play, and that'll always hold back this program until, Fran can figure out the point guard problem. And no better example of that is the Oregon game. I mean, they just point guarded them to death, and Iowa had no answers. And I forget the point guards put up like 60 points on Iowa or something. I mean, it was ugly. And so, yeah, that'll always be the thing holding this program back. And that and defense, defensively, they just have to get better. And, is this one of those years where that turns the corner? I don't know. There's just a lot of new guys too that I don't know how they are defensively. I can't take much from Slippery Rock. Defense looked pretty good against a D2 team. The competition jumps even for Longwood, which is a Big South outfit, I believe. So it's just a lot of questions right now. And I just, at the end of the day, though, I think there's more into it than just make the tournament and what it means to make the tournament. Like, we all just want to make the tournament. I mean, that's our goal, I think, this year for this team is get in the tournament. But for the program, you have to keep making the tournament. You absolutely have to. They cannot, and they've been good at this, thanks to Garza and a couple of the other guys, but they have to keep making the tournament. That's something that has to, at their worst, they have to make the NCAA tournament just to keep this program, because it's the only way to stay relevant. And in your off years, you're a 10 seed. At Michigan State's absolute worst last year, they were in the first four, and the team they lost to got to the Final Four. So that's just something that I think is so imperative for this program to keep that going. You can't have one of those. You go back to Jabo as a million years ago now, Bohannon's first season with him and Cook, and that team was kind of like, or the next season, it was his sophomore year when they were supposed to get to the tournament, and they just cratered. They bottomed out. It was bad. And we can't have that. They have to be better than that. And those seasons cannot happen anymore. And I think this program's past that. I'm not sure. I hope this is sort of the bottom, and then we can just go on that upswing again. Pending, does Keegan leave for the pros? We're getting way ahead of ourselves. A couple more things here. What does Jabo have left in the tank? I think it's going to be a lot of threes. I think it's going to be a lot of the same. I mean, he was like a seventh-year senior last year? He's an eighth-year senior this year. He is what he is. I mean, it's just, he is what he is. We might get more of those clutch Jabo threes that carry the day and pull some games out of the fire. And Hayden, I have to apologize. I have not taken an extensive look at the women's schedule. So I cannot speak on that. I will have much more on the women next week. I just have not taken that deep dive yet. Once football clears up, I can really focus on both of these teams. But I was lost in looking at Alex Padilla numbers on the run and slant patterns. I will say this with the women's team, what they did last year, just strap in. I mean, I can't wait to get down there for a doubleheader. I think they're doing a doubleheader tonight. I couldn't make it down there, obviously, but I can't wait to see this team. I can't wait to see Caitlin Clark, and Lisa Bluter has done such a good job of keeping that program in their worst year last year. Not their worst year, but in what would be like probably the worst season that Clark's going to, a worst team Clark's going to be on. They were in the Sweet 16 and she was incredible. And so I mean, just expecting great things. I can't speak on the game by game schedule. I have to take a deep dive into that, but that's really going to be the team probably to watch come around March. Unless, I mean, if this Iowa team is the one that gets Fran to the Sweet 16 for the first time and this program there for the first time since the late 90s, that would be stunning. But I'll have more on the women's team next week after a couple games. We get a couple of these games under our belts. A couple more things I'm looking at from the men's team though. I think it's going to be a lot of ugliness. In what I mean by that is, they should be 6-0. I hope, and then you go to Purdue, and then you host Illinois. You go to Purdue. I don't know. It should be a really good team. Is this Iowa team really ready for that? Probably not. You could get blown out there and then come back and beat Illinois at home. I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think it's going to be maddening at times. But I think it's something we have to anticipate and accept. So, I should be coming on here after they lose by 20 at Purdue and, ripping Fran, unless they're like 2-7 or something. But I think that's just going to come with the territory right now. I think that's where this program is. And we're one of those. I don't want to use rebuilding because I hope it's reloading and that this is just a tournament team. I'm going to keep saying that until I see otherwise. CJ Frederick, I wish he was still around. That would have really bridged a lot of gaps for this team. Such a shame that he left, but it is what he is. It is what it is. This was interesting. Joe Lunardi, Iowa did not show up. I mean, preseason bracketology. Can you imagine? Is there anything more worthless than, well, how about the polls in college football? Iowa's still ranked, but preseason, Joe Lunardi had Iowa as the last team in the field with no resume. I don't know how anyone's ranked or seeded without a resume. Had them as the last team in. So this should be a tournament team or nationally. That's sort of the thought, or right there. Jerry Palm on CBS didn't have him close. Not even on the screen. So, so maybe nobody knows. I don't know. And another big question I have for them, it goes back to Joe Toussaint. At times last year, I remember writing in one of the game recaps for Go Iowa Awesome. I mentioned that make him the starter. I think it was the Minnesota game that they blew on Christmas. He looked good. I think he missed a couple free throws at the end that cost him, but he just added there was speed there and ball handling, and he was so good passing the ball and finding guys. But you go back and look at those numbers last year, and it is tough because he was coming off the bench, and there were a lot of scorers on that team, but shooting numbers aren't great. So I'm interested to see what else he can do. Is he Anthony Clemens, who's just lockdown defender, physical, can kind of handle the ball? I mean, he can handle the ball better than Clemens did. But can he add offense? Can they find some offense there? Can he be the guy that kind of adds that point guard dynamism? That's not even a word. That dynamic point guard skill set that this program's been missing. I don't know. I think that's a big question. I mean, that's a big question mark. Also, who that was on the team last year is ready to break out? I've heard Keegan's brother, Kenyon, not Kenyon Murray. God, what's his name? I forget his name. Jeez, so bad. I've heard a lot of talk about him. Keegan's brother. Jeez. And Aaron Eulis, I was watching the highlights. Didn't see much from him against Slippery Rock. Perkins gave him some good minutes last year. He looked against Slippery Rock. Not that you can take. I'm not going to take everything out of the Slippery Rock game. That's all I have to go by right now. Who from last year? Josh Agundale, is he ready? Is he ready to step into a role? I mean, there's certainly a hole for any big man in this lineup. Again, it was good to see Peyton Sanford out there hit some threes. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very fascinating. It's a blank canvas. They should blow out Longwood. If they don't blow out Longwood, there might be some issues. Next week I'll be on. I'll have more from Iowa, Minnesota. Very fascinating game. Iowa will have played Longwood and Kansas City, I believe, at that point. In basketball, we'll have more on that. Some preliminary thoughts on how the season's going. We'll also get a good look at the women's team. Oh God, in the chat, I just saw Austin Ash is my breakout player. Yeah, he's been a loyal soldier. He should get some, I mean, look, on this team, he'll probably get some minutes. He was getting minutes last year at times, in emergency duty, it seemed like. And if I recall, I forget what game it was. I think it was the Michigan State game. Really put together some nice minutes on defense, hit a couple shots. I think that was it. The Michigan State blowout win. But yeah, next week I'll be back 8 Central with a lot to talk about all of a sudden. How did Padilla's day go? Did Deuce Hogan get in the game? I mean, if Padilla goes down, Hogan's coming in. I hope Padilla doesn't get hurt. Did Iowa beat Minnesota? What is this team going forward? How does basketball look? How do the women look? The women played tonight, and they'll play again. They'll have at least another game under their belts. High hopes for the women this season. So there's a lot going on all of a sudden. It's not just going to be me hitting my head against the wall about Brian Ferentz not making any adjustments and Tyler Goodson averaging 2 yards a carry. So very exciting. We're just past the 50-minute mark. I want to get out of here a little early so we can get ready for the Iowa Longwood game. Watch it and join me next week. Subscribe at Twitter, IA Sports Review up top there. Facebook, Iowa Sports Review. You can follow me at Classy Hawkeye on Twitter. You can see my stuff during the football season on Fridays on goiowaawesome.com. During the basketball season, it'll be weekly at least, but I'll drop here in and out with pieces on different things. But no problem. This is my therapy too. Quite honestly, after the lows of this football season, this has been very therapeutic for me, because otherwise I think my head would have exploded by now, or it would have just involved me, like, I don't know, punching my shower head or something. So this has been very good. It was pretty dark at Wisconsin, but it's been good. What happened to my eyebrow? Completely genetic, or not. No, I'm sorry, not genetic, completely random. When I was 23, it started changing one day, and that is it. I mean, that's exactly what happened. We went to the doctor and they said it was completely random. It's actually vitiligo, which is the Michael Jackson skin disorder, centralized in my eyebrow. Yep. And I actually forget. It's funny when I saw that pop up. I forget that I even have it at this point, which is crazy. But yeah, maybe that should be my name on Twitter, the White Eyebrow. I don't know. I'm losing it now. Anyways, I'm going to head out. Iowa Longwood coming up in 6.5 minutes-ish. Hopefully the Hawks put together a good performance, something we can go into the weekend. I will be in Iowa City to take them in person. Oh no, don't apologize. I don't know. I don't even care. No, it's all good. John R, you bring up whatever. Yeah. Iowa hoops on Friday. Field hockey actually playing Friday too in the NCAA tournament. They're the 2 seed. I might take that in too while I'm there. And football game Saturday, and then I'll be back next Tuesday with the recap of all that. Tomorrow, Adam will be on at 8 Central, Adam Jacobi, previewing Northwestern, probably talking a little hoops too. And we'll go from there. Till next time, Tom Clos at Classy Hawkeye. I'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.